Dream Drivers, have y'all seen the trailer for The Woman King yet? I am just so excited to see my girl Viola Davis starring as an African general in this epic story inspired by true events of the first ever army of women warriors in a fight to save their kingdom. It tells the story of the Goje, an all-female unit of warriors who protected the African kingdom of the Home with skills and a fierceness unlike anything this world has ever seen. These women are what I will call dream drivers. They're confident, they're strong, and they're powerful. Overall, this is a movie that I can't wait to see. It's one of those movies that I think it's going to blow your mind, but also make you walk out that theater feeling like you got to conquer and achieve. So make sure to go see The Woman King, now playing exclusively in movie theaters. Tickets are on sale now.
We branched away from the safety net that is corporate America to build Black and Bold. A lot of doors were closed in our face, and that can be discouraging for someone who hasn't built up that tough skin. You need resilience. You can't just take no for an answer because, again, it is inevitable. And looking at the word no as permanent can be a huge deterrent to growing and scaling your business. Most of the time, no is conditional. And if you have a goal in mind, you need to figure out what terms you need to be on in order to turn that no into a yes. This is Rod Johnson, co-founder of Black and Bold Specialty Coffee, and you are listening to Dreams and Drive.
Hey, Dream Drivers, welcome to this episode of Dreams and Drive, and I'm so excited for you all to hear from today's guest, Rod Johnson, who is one of the co-founders of Black and Bold Specialty Beverages. I am really excited for you all to hear about how Rod transitioned from his corporate life into working full-time as an entrepreneur, and all that went into him becoming a co-founder of a coffee and tea company. It's pretty interesting, and I think his unique perspective, his unique point of view, and just his story of the work ethic, the sacrifice, and the commitment that went into building this dream that he and his co-founder Pernell had for this brand and how it came into fruition is so inspiring. If you enjoyed this episode, I'm going to say please make sure that you're sharing it with your community. We are Dreams and Drive across the board on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, so make sure that you're tagging us in your Instagram stories. You're posting about this episode wherever you are online. You help us grow our community, and I really do appreciate it. We really appreciate it. So continue to spread the Dreams and Drive mission. And lastly, guys, if you want to join our email newsletter and get our weekly email, The Keys, delivered right to your inbox, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join. All right, let's hear from Rod. Hi, Rod. Welcome to Dreams and Drive.
Hey, how's it going? Thank you so much for having me.
I am excited to have you on the show. I think that our listeners are in for a treat to learn about your story and learn about the amazing company you and your co-founder are, growing Black and Bold. Anyone who loves coffee, loves specialty drinks, this is going to be an episode for you. So, Rod, I love to start our interviews going back in time, right? I really feel like you cannot think about where you are today if you don't really reflect on where you've come from. So let's go back to 8-year-old Rod growing up in Gary, Indiana, right? What was inspiring you as a child? What was your view on the world?
Ooh, all right. I haven't thought about what 8-year-old Rod was thinking of, but if I could tap into that little kid's brain, he was very optimistic and believed that he could do anything. I think at one point I wanted to be a meteorologist. I was obsessed with the weather and I knew how to spell the word. So that was I had dreams of that very early on, but, the inspiration to believe in myself and go after my goals stemmed from my inner circle, whether that be my mom or my grandmother or just other community members that believed and poured into me, essentially, and helped boost my confidence. They recognized very early on that I had potential and did everything within their power to make sure that I realized it. So, I attribute a lot of who I am to my upbringing, to my community, and of course, my family members that have been there for me my entire journey.
So I know you are a dad, right? You have a daughter, I want to say?
Yes. Okay. She'll be 2 here in mid-July.
All right. I have a son. He was born in September 2020, so he'll be 2 in September. Now that you're a parent and reflecting on just how important childhood was for you, like, how do you feel about this question now, knowing that you are raising someone who one day have to answer this?
Yeah, the question being what exactly? I want to make sure
the question, just making sure, what inspired you as a child,
Yeah,
knowing that the
got it.
foundation
Yep.
you're laying for your child now is so important because it's going to be like the way that they view the world or the way that they see their own potential. I see that a lot with my son now, like the little things that he loves. Like he loves Legos right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so just not trying to force it on him, but just showing him there's so much that can be done with Legos and just kind of letting his brain take hold and his own imagination take hold. It's exciting, and it really is an important role that parents can, that earlyhood childhood phase can really make or break your creativity or how you view yourself.
That's real. And that lends itself into how I go about parenting and what I'm hoping that Marley, which is my daughter's name, what she reflects upon, and that I gave her options, that I gave her the luxury of choice. I certainly don't want to confine her to any ideas or what I think her life should be. I want her to explore and ultimately be a resource for that exploration. I want to also serve as an example of what the potential of taking a leap of faith, right? And walking the unbeaten trail, building this business over the last 4 to 5 years certainly took a lot of sacrifice and compromise. And I'm hoping that my daughter realizes that, with a little bit of sweat equity, her dreams can come true as well. So, and whatever industry that is and however that comes about, I just essentially want to be supportive of that. So when she reflects on this conversation, when she's asked in 30 something years, I want her to say that Daddy was always in my corner and he allowed me to navigate and to explore to find something that best fit her needs.
I love that. What were Little Rod's big dreams? Do you remember anything? I recently came across this paper I wrote. I had to be in 4th grade, where it was like, I want to be a doctor that helps kids change their lives around the world. It's funny now to think about all these things that we wanted to be as kids, and then what happens, and then what doesn't happen. But usually there's a common theme that's still alive today. So for you, what was that big dream?
Yeah, I jokingly said I wanted to be a meteorologist, but I those dreams dissipated very quickly, right? I was like, nah, I think I just want to be that because that's in front of me. I never really had one thing in particular that I was gearing after. And I envy the people who knew right away that they wanted to be a doctor, lawyer, politician, or what have you. I did know that I had a natural aura and a natural teaching type of personality. So in whatever role that I wanted to do, I know I wanted to be a nurturer or a teacher to some degree. And that kind of showed itself in the different career paths that I've had to this point. And even when we peel back the layers of Black and Bold, part of what we want want to be as a differentiator is that we teach people about the nuance of coffee. And then we also turn that daily ritual into a means of giving back to the people that need it the most. So even though it may not be apparent on the surface, those dreams of being impactful and educational are still woven into what I do today.
I love it. So you went to Indiana University, right?
Yes. Proud Hoosier.
Yes. Okay. So entrepreneurship wasn't always top of mind, right? Like, what was that career path for you post-college? And what were some of the big skills that you were learning? Hey, I'm really good at this stuff.
Absolutely. So during my undergrad at IU, I Worked on campus as a student fundraiser. So,
oh my gosh, you were one of those people.
I was one of those people.
I get those alumni giving calls all the time, the text, the email.
Oh, yeah, that was me. That was me at 20, 21 years old, interrupting people's dinner, asking them for $20 to donate back to their alma mater. And I kind of got good at it, right? I developed the hard skills of persuasion as well as resiliency, right? I got told no a whole lot, as you can imagine, and your own experience. Not everyone is welcoming those phone calls, let alone ready to write a check. So, 95% of the time, people were hanging up the phone in my face and telling me to buzz off in many different ways. But I was able to overcome those objections and build a career as a nonprofit fundraiser for different colleges, universities, and healthcare institutions across America. So I did a lot of traveling for work, worked with institutions like Florida State University, Vanderbilt University, University of the Pacific, et cetera, and really grew to love this idea of connecting people who have resources to the people who could benefit from some added assistance, essentially. So, that's what I did prior to starting Black and Bold. And I would attribute our social impact piece to that career, that 15 plus year career in the nonprofit space, considering that we give a portion of our proceeds back to the youth. So it was fun while it lasted, but I'm glad that I'm able to use those transferable skills on my own entrepreneurial journey.
I feel like that's a job, even if you don't, let's say you have there are some jobs like you kind of are assigned jobs. I know when I went to school, like sometimes you just I got assigned like my first job working in the kitchen, right? Mm-hmm. But it was kind of like, there are some jobs that even if you hate it or love it, those skills are just going to be important in life. Like I know a lot of people I know who worked for alumni giving at my school. You have to learn how to handle rejection, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
You had to learn communication. You had to learn the art of persuasion. There's so many little things, like looking back at it, where even if like you ended up going down that path. But for people who didn't, or if there's something that you're doing, you don't necessarily love it, I feel like there's a lesson in everything.
That absolutely. And I've had to tap into those experiences so much in building Black and Bold, just the idea of overcoming rejection. We got told no a lot in many different ways, whether it was securing financing very early on or looking to have our products available at different retail locations. A lot of doors were closed in our face, and that can be discouraging for someone who hasn't built up that tough skin. So I am very grateful to my career leading up to this, because it's because of that, because of those objections I've had to overcome, that we have continued to persevere in building our dream.
Ooh, I love it. Love it. Love it. So talk to me, Rod. During your time in the nonprofit world, right? Was there ever a time where you're like, could I be doing something different with my life?
Absolutely. And that's what led us to starting Black and Bold. I had continued to ascend up that corporate ladder and went from being on the front lines of making those phone calls to more of a strategist and incorporating the fundraising efforts into the overall plan for different divisions within these institutions. So with that, I hit the ceiling, though. I was like, I don't know if I'm necessarily fulfilled by this role. Like, granted, we're doing some great work and we're raising millions of dollars for technological upgrades or scholarships or building enhancements. Like the work that we're doing is good, but I don't necessarily feel connected to it. And at the same time, my business partner was having similar conversations, similar internal conversations. So I worked on the nonprofit side of things. He worked on the for-profit side and working in retail merchandising and brand business development, and, asking himself similar questions like, could I be doing this for myself? Do I need to, try to continue to impact someone else's bottom line? And, fortunate for us, we had already been friends, and that friendship lent itself to having those conversations. And we branched away from the safety net that is corporate America to build Black and Bold. So, definitely hit a plateau. And it is because of that plateau that I am now an entrepreneur.
Ooh, so I have a quick question. Just want to like gut check here. Would you consider yourself a millennial? Just making sure you're in the millennial age group, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Do you feel like millennials are obsessed with this idea of fulfillment? I'm a millennial too, right? And, they say like other generations, like the ones before us, Gen Z, definitely fulfillment's important to them. But why do you feel like it's something that we just don't want to have? It's a non-negotiable for us at some point. Like we get to a point where it becomes a non-negotiable.
Yeah. We saw the impact that it had on the generation before us. I don't know about you, but I saw my parents, I saw the adults in my neighborhood go to work and go home, right? They didn't have the luxury to be fulfilled by their job. They were just more so trying to make ends meet. And it could be that they were ignorant that you could have both. It was always positioned that you had to have one or the other, right? It reminds me of the scene in Drumline, right, where the main love interest of Nick Cannon, she wants to major in arts, but her parents won't let her, right? She's there like, hey, you can't have a career doing something that you love, and they discourage her from doing so. The punchline of it all is at the end of the movie, she ends up majoring in some type of arts, right? Some type of dance. I think that's what it was. And, we demand that because, again, we saw the negative impact that it had on the generation before us. So I don't know if it's necessarily, if I would use the word obsessed with fulfillment, but I would say we feel entitled to it. And I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. I don't believe that you have to separate business from pleasure. I believe that there should be a balance, and you shouldn't over index on either, but they shouldn't, they can coexist. That's my thought process on it.
No, I hear you there. I do think it's very important because, like, we also just want to live, like you said, like healthier, more balanced lives than that of our parents. Like, think about how much like sickness they're going through, like that generation, right? Like, it bleeds over into so many other areas of their life. So if we can just make small changes with our day to day, including how we make a living and a life for ourselves, hopefully by the time we reach their age that they are now, right?
Yeah,
we have
absolutely.
a different perspective to lend to our kids and the generation after. Talk to me about the day you and your co-founder, came up with, or not came up with, but talk to me about the day the idea sparked, right? Let's say the idea had to go from park to reverse, right? Think about that gear shift in the car. What was that day like for you, if you can remember?
Yeah, absolutely. I've told this before, but it was a very organic conversation. Pernell, my co-founder, business partner, great friend of 20 plus years. We talk all the time, right? We've watched each other grow up. We've had thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of conversations over the past 20 years. And when he called me one day, I didn't think anything of it. It was one of these instances that had happened many times before. And he had asked me, hey, Rod, do you drink coffee? I was like, no, not really. I'm more of a tea guy. Now, granted, I had spent a lot of time in coffee shops because I traveled for work, as I mentioned. And, the best landing spot in any city is, your local coffee shop or Starbucks or something along those lines. So I had an affinity for the coffee shop culture, but I didn't necessarily like coffee. I would go and, get a chai tea latte or something like that. P was more of, and still is more of, the coffee aficionado. So he just called me and said, hey, man, do you drink coffee? I was like, no, not really. And he's like, well, I have this idea. Tell me what you think about this. Now, that was already on the heels of us knowing that we wanted to go into business together. We had threw a couple of other ideas against the wall that we might actually activate against now that we've seen the success of Black and Bold. But the one that resonated the most at the time was this idea of becoming a coffee roastery or coffee supplier. And those conversations continue to evolve into us building the business. So it wasn't I would say that we fell upon it, right? We just looked at our own interests and our own affinities and decided that if we were going to, all right, we're going to move away from the 9 to 5, we're going to do something different, we're going to go to these uncharted waters, it might as well be around something that we have some familiarity with. And coffee and tea just happened to be it.
So I'm going to ask you, was it purposeful to go into the product-based business versus, let's say, like a retail storefront? Because I feel like some people would say, hey, I want to start a coffee shop, right? Was there a specific business thinking where you're like, no, let's go into the supply. Let's be a supplier. Let's actually provide products versus that experience?
Absolutely. That was very deliberate from day one. And the reason for that is a barrier of entry. It takes a lot more to stand up a coffee shop than it does to stand up an online store. We started our business out of Purnell's garage. So he did very early on. Purnell did all of our operations, and I curated our digital experience. So I ran our online store, ran our social media, and just basically all things marketing. But it was because we took that approach that we were able to get up and running and have little financial investment, or we didn't need as much of a financial investment. And, trying to have a lease, and then you deal with the overhead and having to, operate and have employees. There was a lot that that comes with opening a coffee shop. So we figured that based on the rate of speed that we want to go and getting this idea off the ground and strike while the iron's hot, it just made sense for us to be behind the scenes.
Yeah. And you talked about barrier of entry being low when, going that route. What about actually just the opportunity there? I'm sure you guys both did research just about the coffee industry. How did you know that there was a unique opportunity to make space for Black and Bold in the market?
Yeah. Absolutely. So there was both an art and a science. So anecdotally, we spent a lot of time in coffee shops, and we knew that the community was rich.
Rich as in coffee. Money, or
no, as in like people really care about coffee. There is
people who love coffee. Community. People who, I'm not a coffee drinker, right? Like you said, so you're more of a tea drinker, but coffee connoisseurs, they go hard for their roast.
Exactly. And so we knew that there was an appetite for coffee in general. And here comes the science piece. It's the second most consumed beverage in America and the third most in the world. The top three, it just mixes up depending on the geography, are water, coffee, and tea. Right. So they run our beverage consumption. And so we knew that the pool that we would be swimming in would be vast, crowded, but vast nonetheless.
For some people that could scare them, right? Like there's a lot of players in the market.
Yep.
Why weren't you guys scared? Or maybe you weren't scared, right? But like, what was your approach to how are we going to carve out a space for us? Because I think that's the big thing that a lot of people, when they have these big ideas, they have these big dreams, even if the market's saturated, I always say there's a place for you in there, right? And you don't need to have it's always like find your first 1,000 customers, right? And then go from there. Like when you think about the numbers, you don't need everyone in the world to buy your coffee, but you need a certain amount and have that to be sustained over time and grow incrementally from there. But what was your thinking as to how you guys were going to carve out this niche?
That's a great question. And so with us spending a lot of time in coffee shops and understanding the culture and doing a little bit of research, what was available to us, we noticed that there was a lack of diversity. Right. And that's not unique to the coffee industry, but it was abundantly clear once we started to peel back those layers. So we knew that in and of itself would give us a competitive advantage. And then when surveying the coffee industry, we noticed that there was a lack of closing the loop as it pertains to social impact. Most businesses, they don't necessarily support domestic causes. They'll support international causes. They'll support the beginning aspect of the supply chain, not necessarily the end user or the communities of the end user. So we figured that we wanted to help people in our own backyard. And with this heightened interest of conscious consumerism, we felt that would resonate with a growing audience. People nowadays are being more intentional and deliberate with where they spend their money, right? You can, especially when it comes to commodity products, it's thousands, millions of coffee brands. Okay, what makes you different? What do you stand for? How are you showing some sense of reciprocity back to your community? Consumers are becoming more savvy and asking those questions. So we built our business to be that option for them.
Dream Drivers, life is sweet and made even sweeter when spent with the ones you love. Savor the moment, big or small, with a delicious bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drink, or for a new favorite sip whenever you get thirsty along that dream driving journey. Check out the full Starbucks ready-to-drink coffee lineup online or wherever you buy groceries. Because with Starbucks coffee, you're always ready for the right now. Dream Drivers, what's up? It's summer, and I know we all are on the quest for the perfect beverage to quench our desire for refreshing. So here's the question. What have you always wanted to try? Is there something that has been a dream of yours, a flavor, a taste that you just really need to get at? Gold Peak Real Brewed is here to unleash your thirst for trying. Real brewed tea, real cane sugar, real delicious. From sweet tea, unsweetened tea, green tea, California raspberry tea, Georgia peach tea, lemon tea, lemonade tea. There are so many options to find what's best for you. And this summer, we need to try something new, try something brewed, because nobody wants to be dream driving with a dry mouth or thirsty. We need that fuel to be at our best for this ride. So take this as your sign to say yes, opt in, go for it. Because trying is what life is all about. Try Gold Peak. Talk to me about the challenges in the early days, right? Because with any dream driving journey, you're going to hit some hurdles. And that could really be what puts you back in park or puts you in neutral, right? Like, was there a specific hurdle or a specific challenge that you two really had to work through in order to get to the next stage of the business?
Yeah, absolutely. We built this thing from scratch. Every aspect. And
you guys, was this both your first time building a business?
Absolutely, or one that actually got some traction. We both tried our hands at some other.
Those stories, right? Like I tried to build this back in the day.
Exactly. We had our own versions of lemonade stands that didn't necessarily take off, but this is the one that had some real bones, that had some real potential. So some of those, and with that though, we were ignorant to what it means to start a business and what it means to really be successful in the coffee industry. P nor I can come from coffee or formal coffee backgrounds, right? I'm not related to coffee farmers. I've never been a barista in my life. So I really didn't, and same for P. All we knew is that we had an affinity for the product, for the culture, for the community. And, we just started so that imposter syndrome sets in, right? It's like, I don't really know this and am I worthy based on how I have acquired my knowledge? Because we watched a lot of YouTube videos. We became mentor or mentees of anyone who had content out there, and just continue to curate and hone in on our craft. But with that does, and especially now, or I won't say now, but recently, given our competitors, that imposter syndrome definitely does rear its ugly head, if you will. So, having to overcome that, especially very early on, was something that we had to do.
Yeah, no, I think it's so important. And just knowing that, like, you're not alone if you do come across that, right? Because I think a lot of people think I'm the only person in the world who's experiencing that. But it's something that, if you listen to this show for a long time, most of the biggest hurdles that people face really aren't the tactical stuff, because that tactical stuff can be figured out, right? And you can figure out the supplier. You can figure out, packaging eventually. But if you don't have the mindset, right, that's what you need to really keep it pushing and to keep it growing, to keep it going. Because it's going to be tough,
Right. That's real. Yeah, no, we had no shortage of obstacles, and those are just the two that come to mind. But I am fortunate to be wired in a way to want to overcome those barriers. I'm naturally curious, so I ask a lot of questions, and I say this often: like the only way that I'm gonna get the information is if I ask the question. So, and the worst thing that you can tell me is no. So, just approaching life, and then therefore this business endeavor that way has yielded some dividends for us.
And you already knew from, your time in college, like a no is all right. I heard no every day calling people on the phone, right?
Yeah. And no is not permanent always. Sometimes there's a reason behind the no. It could be, not now, maybe later, or I need more information, or that's not the right amount. There are, most of the time, no is conditional. And if you have a goal in mind, you need to figure out what terms you need to be on in order to turn that no into a yes. So that is the differentiator, or at least I'll say our biggest, and I say our as in my business partner and I, that's our biggest competitive advantage, is that we don't stop at the no. It's like, okay, thank you for that. Can you unpack for me why you've arrived to that? And is there a path to yes? I think that needs to be incorporated into the mindset, trying to figure out what is that path to yes, as opposed to taking no as the end all be all.
That's so important. What is the path to yes? Along the line, or along the way, Rod, I haven't asked this question before, but it just came to me. Were there any skills that you were really good at that hurted the business? And I say that, or hurted your approach to being an entrepreneur. And I say that only because, like for me, right? I'm very detail oriented, and I'm a thinker, right? But sometimes overthinking has hurt my ability to grow my brand because I hesitate. I'm thinking too much about things. Was there anything that you realized you had to check this superpower of yours in order to move through something?
Yeah, nice to meet you. My name is Rod Johnson, and I too am an overthinker.
I come up with scenarios that haven't even happened. I'm the pastor. If I'm going to Miami, I'm bringing a snowsuit because you never know. You never know. Okay.
That's hilarious. No, I feel you, and that resonates with me. And I suffer from analysis paralysis. Right? I'm like, I need this to be right. I got to find all of the right. And if I would have, while that can be good, and it definitely served me well in my previous role, but as an entrepreneur, it's no time to wait. You don't have the luxury of time. Like, you have to act now, because that window of opportunity can close real quick. And P often will come to me, and definitely early on, he's like, bro, get out the way. Like, get out of the way. Let the thing do what the thing is supposed to do. And then we will reevaluate and reassess once we get some learning. So I'm very grateful that, we have that relationship, for him to, one, know that about me, and then two, encourage me to not let that get in the way of growth. So that is definitely my superpower that can be a distraction to how we scale the business.
Yeah, one thing you mentioned a lot in this episode is your co-founder. So as you say, you're not the only one who founded this business. And a lot of times, some people, as we hear in the industry, right, having a co-founder could be either a good thing or a bad thing. And there's definitely certain things you have to make sure that you guys both have, as far as like legal, all that stuff. You know that.
Yep.
How has having a co-founder in the business been like a light for you and the brand? And I say that because I had this conversation with these two women a few weeks ago, and she made me rethink something. This notion that she was like, who started this thing that you shouldn't go into business with your family, or you shouldn't go into business with your friends, right? She's like, look at other communities. They've been doing that for a long time and getting further. So maybe we as a community need to rethink that. And it's not that you shouldn't, but definitely think about why and how.
Yeah.
So for you, like, talk to me about the whole idea of having a co-founder. Would you recommend it? What are some things to keep in mind if you are growing a business and using that going that route?
Absolutely. So I am very fortunate that my co-founder is basically my brother. We've known each
Yeah.
other since we were 13 years old, and the relationship was already there. So, when we think about the uncomfortable conversations like around ownership split, and what happens if this person decides they don't want to be in the business anymore, and just a bunch of the legal mumbo jumbo, it was easier for us to navigate that because we knew it was coming from a place of the foundation that we have built. So, and that shows itself, many times when we have disagreements about the direction that we need to take the business. We know that it's rooted in a place of love, and that helps us do what's best for the business. So my situation is very unique in that regard, and I know that not a lot of people can identify with that. But I wouldn't discourage them from at least trying it out. You do need to have some vetting out process and have open lines of communication, because even though Pernell is my greatest friend, there could have been some red flags early on that that we needed to know about. So we had some honest dialogue about work ethic, about objectives and goals for ourselves personally and for the business. And we still have those conversations. So my advice to anyone who has a co-founder or looking to bring on a co-founder or go into business with one of your close associates is lean on that honesty that I would imagine the relationship is built upon, and allow that to inform the decisions that you make for the business. So yeah, like I said, my experience has been great. I'm very inspired by my co-founder. He's the hardest working dude I know. It literally, his work ethic is unmatched, and he's a very compassionate individual. A lot of people don't get to see that side, but I know that he's motivated to grow this business because of the end beneficiaries, that being the youth of America. So I don't think that we would be where we are if it weren't for P and what he brings to the table.
I love that. And I just think that representation and seeing those examples of it working is so important, because we could always harp in on just like the negative, or this co-founder relationship didn't work, right? But that's not always the case. And just people seeing, especially I think, in our community, the Black community, just seeing that there are examples of this working, and especially you guys both being Black men. I know I have a Black son, right? So when I see these type of things, I'm like, it's that representation, and it's seeing the possibility that's going to open up someone else's eyes of, hey, I can do this too. And that's what I think is just so important.
Yes. And I wouldn't say that we set out to be examples or to be that representation for that piece. But now knowing that it is a responsibility that we have pride about, right? We lean into that responsibility because we didn't necessarily have an abundance of those examples. So if we can serve as insight as to what's possible, then I think we're doing a good job.
Oh, I love it. So one of the things I want to make sure we tap in and actually talk about the product a little bit, because there might be somebody who's listening and is like, hey, I want to start a brand and I want it to be successful, but I just can't grow my community. I can't find any consumers, anybody who's actually wants to buy my product. What would be your tip for that person on like that community building and actually tapping into your customer base or building a customer base? Because if you don't have customers, do you have a business?
Right. Absolutely. So I can only speak about our experience. And,
yeah, of course.
We reached out to our inner circle, our family and friends, or our social media following, if you will. And, did our own quote unquote market research because we definitely didn't have the money to buy Mintel or Nielsen reports at the time. And we just got feedback on our product, what their experience with a product like ours has been, what have been some of the wins and losses with other companies that they've had. And we took those learnings in building our business, and we continue to get feedback from our community especially as it grows. It's not our expectation to serve everybody, but the people who are in our ecosystem, we want to make sure that we show up for them in a way that's best suitable for them, because essentially we're a service brand. So it's just asking those questions and doing something with the feedback, right? Like don't take surveys and then do the exact opposite.
All right, thanks for telling me.
Exactly, right? It's like you do nothing with it. So make sure that if people are taking the time to give you some insight to what they want, what they like, what they don't like, that you use that to inform your decisions and finding a product or service that you want to bring to market.
Was there a game changer insight that changed your approach to how you looked at your business? Like something that you learned, you're like, wow, this is important.
That people care about people and not businesses. I think that's definitely going to be on the forefront of the decisions that consumers make going forward. The more you can humanize your business, the better. And I realized that very early on that, even, friends and family, they didn't necessarily care about the product that they were rocking with me. Right? They're like, yo, you're Rod. I like you. You're my friend. You're my son. You're my whatever. I'm investing in you. It's less about what I get in exchange. It's because I believe in you. And then as our company continued to grow, we saw different iterations of that. Having people gravitate towards our founder story and the fact that Pernell and I are friends and we're born and raised in Gary, Indiana, and we're able to overcome the obstacles that many inner city kids have to overcome. And they just hearing that was inspiring for them. So we've just had different versions of the community pouring into us as people. And that I think is going to continue to catapult and increase our brand awareness.
Yeah. And I think too, like I love, like I saw this line on your website, Coffee for You, Impact for Youth, right? And that's going to resonate as well, like having that give back part of being just not something that you do during a holiday, right? Because I think some brands, as we saw after like once, the whole Black Lives Matter resurgence of, buying Black, where a lot of brands wanted to just kind of attach themselves to a cause for a limited period of time. But this is truly embedded into your business, right? Like, why was that so important? And, if someone is looking to do that in their own business, right? Like, why is making sure it's genuine? Like, how do you make sure that you're just not doing it to kind of get the customers who want it, who you can get because you have that, right? I think that's so important. And a lot of people just don't do it because you think that's the way to build your consumer base, right?
Absolutely. So the consumer is becoming increasingly more savvy, right? And they're asking those questions. What do you stand for beyond this product that you are selling me? And they will call BS if they feel like it is not rooted in authenticity. So to answer your question, why did we include or embed social impact from the beginning is because we didn't want to be classified as that. We didn't want to be looked at as a performative ally. All right, when we go back to the summer of 2020 and we watched the murder of George Floyd, we saw a bunch of businesses, raise their hands and say that they wanted to support the Black community. And now they got all these DEI initiatives and they're trying to restructure their boards and, they change their messaging and put Black squares on Instagram. We saw all of that happen and then it dissipates. And here we are like, okay, I knew that was for the moment. And I did not want to be classified in that. So the way that we approached it was, okay, we know that we want to give back. We know because that's just core to who we are. And we resonate with the plight of people that are in communities like Gary, Indiana. And so it was authentic to us. My grandmother used to always say, what comes from the heart reaches the heart. And, like I said, people they can see through the fluff if you're just doing it for the moment. And we've been very intentional about bringing the community along for the ride. And then plus, it's easier to embed that and normalize that in your economics as opposed to pivoting later on down the line. So now you have to go find the money to donate to organizations as opposed to that already being a line item in your budget, in your annual budget for the year. So it just made sense for us to, one, live our truth and be who we are and do that from the jump.
Yeah, I've never thought about it like, making sure it's part of it from the beginning. Because if you have to go back and then add that into like your business model, it could screw you up if you're not already prepared for that, right? Like, absolutely. You can't just say I'm going to pledge 5% of all my proceeds, and that 5% is actually something you need, right? So you got to make sure that everything, all the math is mathing.
Right. That's real. That's real. The math got a math, and and it's. Now, you don't want to then, because the math ain't math, and you don't want to make decisions that, like you said, hurt your business and don't feel authentic. And it just that snowball effect could be avoided, right? It's either be all in or don't do it, because it can be more detrimental for you trying to be something that you're not.
Yeah. Where are you guys now with thinking about the future of Black and Bold? First of all, I love the name. We didn't even get to talk about the name, right? But there's just so much there, like Black and Bold, where coffee, normally some people like their coffee black, right? They like the coffee strong. So there's so many things there's so many ways that name itself is just amazing. But when thinking about the future, I know in the beginning you talked about making sure you guys had goals and that you were checking yourself against these goals that you had, and that you had these ideas that you had to kind of put on the back burner that you might be putting into fruition in the future. But let's say you're in your car now, you're looking through your rearview mirror, you saw where you went, right? What's in the front mirror? Like, where are you guys going? What's in your windshield screen view right now?
Absolutely. So we want to be considered an innovation hub of coffee and tea-based beverages. And what that means is we don't want to only have coffee beans, coffee ground, and loose leaf tea. We want to meet our customers where they are and insert ourselves more into their lifestyle. We want to be a lifestyle brand. So we need to have a portfolio of products that accommodate our consumers' lifestyle. So what's ahead of us is leaning into that and bringing to market new products that I think will resonate with coffee lovers, coffee and tea lovers across the spectrum. The most recent version of that happened a couple of weeks ago, actually. So kind of in the rearview mirror, but not really, because we gotta make this thing sing.
It's like to the side of the car. It's like,
it's actually in the passenger seat. It's kind of navigating, telling me where to go. But it was the release of our first ready to drink product. We released 8-ounce cans of our cold brew coffee. So branching away from products that need to be brewed and leaning into more of a convenience play. So as that's the rise, the fastest growing category within the coffee industry, we think that this is exactly what our consumers are needing and are asking for. So we want to, just like I said, continue to bring new and innovative ideas so that we can reach more people, which ultimately helps us grow the give back piece of our business for the 15 pledge partners.
Well, congratulations on that, and wishing you guys continued success. And definitely, also just tapping into a new market, because there might be people who love their cold brew but don't like hot coffee. I don't know if it's hot brew. Yeah. I don't know.
Right. Exactly. No, you sound like a coffee aficionado. That was exactly right.
Nah, I just read a lot. I know a lot about it. Maybe you can tell me. So, I still have a 9 to 5, and, we're in the office 2 days a week. And I've been trying to figure out the difference between a mochaccino and a cafe mocha. They have a little screen, and I'm like, is there a difference between these two? And I'm like, I don't know. I've never heard
of a mochaccino. That is new to me. And so I wouldn't know how to compare and contrast against a cafe mocha, but they both sound delicious.
Yeah, I tried it. It was ready made because I just had to push a button. So I'll report back on that. Last thing that I want to ask you about before we jump into our lightning round is this idea idea of partnerships and distribution, right? Because any part of your dream driving journey, you can't always do it alone, right? And when you need to scale, there's always going to be that part where you got to team up with other people. I know you guys had that great collaborations with Ben and Jerry's, your distribution partners. We could talk, this could be its own episode, just on its own, but talk to me about the biggest learnings that you both realized when approaching the way that you do partnerships and distribution partners for your brand.
Yeah, well, one, we knew that we wanted to have partners that align with us, align with our values. There are a ton of retailers, there are a ton of other B Corps, there are a ton of other CPG brands, but if there isn't any synergy as to who we're doing this for, then the partnership just isn't for us. And with that has informed who we work with. So, for example, Ben and Jerry's, in my opinion, is the best in class when it comes to B Corps. B Corps are organizations that prioritize purpose as much as profit. And when they reached out to us to partner with the limited edition cold brew coffee called Changes Brewing, we were over the moon, especially because it was rooted in bringing awareness to the People's Response Act. That was a piece of legislation that was championed by Congresswoman Cori Bush with the intent to reimagine the legal system and invest in the resources, that are more resonant with the Black communities as opposed to taking this one size fits all approach. So, that working with them, what we learned from that is the relationship doesn't have to be transactional, that, you can hold out and work with people that share your visions, share your goals, and share the love for the communities that you're trying to impact. And because we've had such a good relationship with them, that's the standard now, right? Like that's the bar as it pertains to who we work with going forward. Other examples of our partners have been Target. We see how intentional Target is about supporting Black founders. We've worked with the NBA, and the NBA is, in my opinion, the most progressive sports league in America, in allowing their customers to really, not customers, their players, their employees to voice their opinions without retaliation, and being able to, again, work with those type of entities. What we learn and what continues to be apparent is that there are large corporations that put their money where their mouth is, and they're going to do what they say that they're going to do. They're not going to be performative allies.
Yeah, not being scared to, I think a big learning that I'm hearing too is like not even be scared to at least try out a partnership. Sometimes you think you got to just stay at it alone and we're just going to sell our copy on our product online forever, right? Not knowing, all right, think about retail distribution, right? Think about how you can push the needle. If your true goal is growth, right? You got to be open to the ways that you can grow. And that's what I'm really enjoying about our conversation, is just seeing how like you started out as wanting to be a meteorologist. Maybe you never know how weather might come back into play here.
Right.
Like that shifted. You found that you were really good at this one thing in college, and then now you're able to use those skill sets to grow this coffee brand with your partner. Like there's so much that I think dream drivers can really just learn from listening to your story. So I'm just really happy that we were able to just touch on so many things today, and hopefully for you to reflect on, where you have come from and where you're going.
Absolutely. No, it definitely serves that purpose. I was meeting with a group of other founders, of other Black founders, and someone gave the suggestion of making an ego book. I'm like, what's an ego book? An ego book is a list of, accomplishments that you've had on your journey for you to tap into when, you're doubtful or things aren't going your way. So this conversation is the audio version of an ego book, because it definitely is reassuring for me that we have come a long way. And I don't oftentimes get a chance to reflect. So I appreciate you for planting that seed.
Thank you. And, I had circled this to talk about at the end of our conversation. We kind of talked about it in the beginning. Because, I talk about this like with other mompreneurs, right? Like, I don't even know, is there a word called like dadpreneurs, right?
I haven't heard it.
I feel like sometimes dads don't get that credit. Well, not that you don't get the credit, but like a mom who's also a business owner is, I feel like the conversation isn't had enough that dads are also balancing, right? Like they're also trying to figure out how to balance fatherhood,
That's a fact.
idea of building a dream. Like, how has that been for you as a dadpreneur, Rod, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, one, I appreciate you for acknowledging that because it definitely is a balance. And I am fortunate that, that I want to have a business partner who's in the same situation, right?
Okay.
Who gets it and who's
I
like,
understand,
okay,
right?
I get that life happens, and you need to show up for your family and responsibilities outside of here. And I do my best job of being present. When I'm home, right? I'm not in two places at once. I'm making sure that I'm watching Bluey or I'm playing with the numbers and, alphabet and things of that nature. And I really enjoy it. I wanted to be a father. I wanted to be a dad. This wasn't something that like happened just because. It was very, very deliberate. And because I'm in that space now where I want to show up for my child essentially. And, it is a privilege, and it's a privilege that I love. Like I don't say that like I am a father. It's like I get to be a father. That's how I approach fatherhood. And as a result of that, it's easy for me to turn off the professional and work Rod and just be in daddy mode. That serves as like a decompressor too, right? It's just hanging out with Marley is it allows me to escape from all of the stressors.
It's like a stress. Like, you get a hug from your kid and you're just like, I love you.
I needed that, right? Like I love when she comes and hugs my kneecaps, right? So I'm like, man, thank you. I had a rough day today. I appreciate that you're showing me some love right now. So yeah, no, I'm doing my best job at balancing, and it's easy because she's 2, so I get away with that leaning in some other direction sometimes. But overall, it's a great journey.
Yeah, and just knowing that you're building legacy and, maybe something one day that you can hand down to her if she wants to, go down that path, or just her seeing you building something is going to ignite something in her. Whether, we don't know what that is yet, right? But she's going to look back and when asked about her father and, what she saw growing up, she's going to have something to say, and just hopefully that something is meaningful and something is impactful,
That's the plan. That is the plan.
So let's end our conversation. Of course, if you want to be a dream driver, you have to have your keys to success, Rod, right? So tell me 3 things that you think every dream driver needs in their toolkit before they hit the road.
The first thing they need is grace. And grace for themselves. You're not going to hit it out the park right away. You're going to run into some speed bumps and roadblocks, continuing going with the analogy. And with that, giving yourself grace and space to accept the imperfections is of absolute necessity. But with that, you need resilience. You can't just take no for an answer because, again, it is inevitable. And looking at the word no as permanent can be a huge deterrent to growing and scaling your business. And then lastly, you need to have, flexibility. I joke with my team all the time, and I tell them that entrepreneurship is Latin for pivot. It's not, but I say that because I'm like, hey, we got to do something different today, y'all. I know I said this thing yesterday, and I know I said that I wouldn't change my mind or that I don't foresee any circumstances, but such is life. We got to move, and we got to move quickly. So not digging your heels in the sand and being on your toes, I think is going to be hugely beneficial in your entrepreneurial journey. So 3 keys to success: grace, resiliency, and nimbleness.
Well, thank you so much. I know you mentioned this earlier that people fall in love with people right before they fall in love with the brand or the product. So hopefully our listeners fell in love with you and your story, and now they want to go buy some Black and Bold. So tell our listeners where they can find Black and Bold online, or how they can further connect with you or the brand.
Absolutely. Well, one, I love y'all too. But you can find Black and Bold in pretty much everywhere that coffee is sold, nationally distributed by way of Target, Albertsons, Walgreens, of course, Amazon, as well as our online store, which is blackandbold.com. That's spelled BLKANDBOLD.com. And you can find us across all social media platforms. Same handle, BLKANDBOLD.
Thank you so much. And, you guys started this in 2018, right?
Yes, just celebrated our 4-year anniversary earlier this month.
There's so much that can happen in 4 years. And for anybody who is, stuck right now on an idea, it's 2022. Put that dream into drive because you never know where you're going to be in 2026, right?
That's a fact.
Thank you so much, Rod. I had such an amazing time chatting with you, and I hope our dream drivers did as well.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
COVID-19 moves fast, and now you can too. If you feel symptoms, even if they're mild, you should test fast. Test positive and at high risk for severe COVID-19? Then act fast with authorized oral treatments that can be taken at home and must be taken within 5 days from when symptoms begin. COVID-19 moves fast, and now you can too by asking your healthcare provider if an oral treatment is right for you. Learn about a treatment option at treatcv19.com. This message is sponsored by Pfizer.
All right, so that's the wrap for this episode of Dreams and Drive. I hope you enjoyed our guest's dream driving journey as well as listening to their keys to success. If you love this episode, you know what to do. Please make sure that you are following us. We are at Dreams and Drive across social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So make sure you're sharing this episode, posting it to your Instagram stories, texting it to a friend, sharing on LinkedIn, wherever you are or online. Just pay this forward and share this with somebody. We really appreciate it. And all the sharing that you do helps us grow our community. If you want to join our email newsletter, The Keys, and get weekly updates delivered to your inbox, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join. And lastly, if you know somebody who would be great for this show, or if you are someone who would be great for this show, please go to dreamsanddrive.com/pitch. I'm always accepting new guests. I'm always accepting new pitches. So I love to see those pitch requests coming in. Keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again in the next episode. Bye, guys.